Okay, so today, man, this thing is not straight. Yeah, today we're just gonna be talking about life sciences. I'm gonna be sharing some valuable tips, study tips with regards to life sciences, what I think works and what everyone should know. Hey, that was cringe. I don't usually do introductions. Now, before we go any further, please pause the video and grab a pen and notebook and start writing some notes instead of just passively listening to me. Taking notes will really help you absorb the information better. Okay, so I've decided to make this a subject-based series, whereby I'll be talking about the different subjects that I did. I think I've already talked about life orientation. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing a subject-based series, like a playlist. I think my next video is gonna be on like maths or physics, or I don't know. Actually, you guys just let me know what should the next subject be, because yeah, I have a lot to cook. Okay, so let's talk about life sciences. In my opinion, I feel like life sciences is divided into 3 steps when it comes to studying, right? We have 3 steps. Step 1 being the active learning phase, step 2 being the reinforcement phase, and step 3 being the testing phase. So we're gonna be going through each and every one of these phases, and then towards the end, I'm also just gonna be talking about some extra tips, side tips that you should consider, when it comes to studying life sciences. And we just started actually. So let's talk about the active learning phase. And this is the phase whereby you'll be actively engaging with the content for the first time. You'll be using active study methods to actually study your topics one by one in order to understand the material. Now, there are a whole lot of different active study methods that you can use, and it's gonna be up to you. You're just gonna do your research and just choose what works best for you. And if you already have one, then you're off to a great start. And just one extra tip when it comes to active studying: do not rely on 1 or 2 sources. Do not rely on your textbook or the notes that you were given in class for studying. Make sure that you explore the different sources that are available online. There are not many, but like there are a few textbooks that are available for free online, and some study guides that are available. So try and find out about those and use those different study guides and everything in order to take all that different information. Remember that each textbook interprets the information in its own unique way. So try and get all those different resources, and when you're studying a particular topic, try and find the view in each and every one of them. And most of the time, you'll find that one textbook doesn't have the information that the other one has. For example, there's this study guide, the Mind the Gap. So the Mind the Gap study guide is very, very limited, and I know some people who actually used to use it. It's a very limited study guide, in a sense that it only gives you a summary. And now we have people who use that thing for studying. So just make sure that when you study, use the different free textbooks that are out there and try and incorporate all of them into one. And with the right resources and right methods, this first step will be a breeze. Okay, not really a breeze, but I'm just saying that it's gonna be much easier because you'll be hearing different point of views from different people. Okay, so now that we have gone through the content, we're moving on to step 2. And in this step 1 of the active learning phase, it doesn't have to necessarily be that you actually understand the content fully. You just need to go through everything. Like, for example, if you're looking at the brain in grade 12, just make sure that you go through all the different parts using active methods. Do not just be highlighting everything everywhere. Make sure you understand everything, consult the different sources and use them. And now we'll be moving on to step 2, which is the reinforcement phase. So the reinforcement phase is quite self-explanatory. We want to reinforce what we already know, what we have just learned in the active learning phase. We want to reinforce and apply repetition into whatever we have learned. And there are different ways to reinforce information, and some of them being some of the ones that I used rather as flashcards. You can use your flashcards. You can use the blurting method, and this is whereby you actually write what you remember. From that, active learning phase that you already did, write down the things that you remember, and then try as much as possible to write everything. And then once you're done, consult the sources again, see what's missing, fill it in, do that process again over and over. Remember, the whole concept of this step is repetition, so we want to repeat. Same thing applies with flashcards. We are repeating the things that we have already learned. Another tip, another method is actually teaching other people, explaining the things that you've just learned to your friends. Not really teaching, but basically explaining what goes on through the process. You will actually be reinforcing the content more into your knowledge, or your long-term memory rather. And one other method that I actually recommend here is using YouTube videos. YouTube videos also help reinforce the things that you've learned. And one mistake that I think most people usually make is actually using YouTube videos in step 1, in which you're supposed to actually be starting to understand the content. You want to start by watching a YouTube video while you are there sitting down. I really recommend that you start by working on the content on your own alone, and then after that you can move to the YouTube videos. The YouTube will help you clarify the some of the concepts that you didn't understand, or rather in general, just having to make sure you got everything. You can watch those YouTube videos. Just don't start a topic by going to YouTube and watching or listening to what someone says. Start it by yourself, independently, work your way up, and I think we are off to a great start. I hope you're still taking notes. Now, moving on, we have the third phase, right? Or rather the third step, which I call the testing phase. Now, this is the last and final nail to your studying process, and this is where you'll be testing your knowledge, the things that you have applied in your active learning phase, and also the repetition phase, whereby you've been repeating the content. You are now going to be testing it in this phase using your past papers. I know that the whole concept of past papers gets thrown around a lot. How do you study? I use past papers, and like when you just get there, you sit down, you open a past paper, and their experience is not gonna be the same as yours, because Bona, they started at some point, right? They started off with the learning phase, the active learning phase, and then they went on to repeat the content, and then they went to past papers. So now we're moving on to the past paper stage, and this is where you'll be testing your knowledge. And I have what you call this thing. I have divided the past papers practicing in general into 3 different types, right? And these are the topic, single topic questions, random topic questions, and the full question paper questions. So let's go through each and every one of them, or rather each of them. Let's go through them. Starting with the single topic question. This is where you'll be doing at least five questions of a particular topic consecutively. So meaning that after you are done actively learning that topic, you are now gonna select only the questions that are related to what you are studying. You pick out those questions, and then you start practicing. You write down your answers, you check the memo, and then you repeat the ones that you didn't get. The second type of past paper practicing is what you call this thing, random practicing. So this is when you open a question paper, and then from there you start doing any of the questions, right? You just randomly pick out any questions. And I highly recommend this when you want to identify your weak spots, or maybe topics that you are not fully confident in. You basically do this process, and you just select a random topic to see how confident you are with that particular topic. And then the last type of past paper practicing is the full question paper practicing. It's self-explanatory, right? So this is where you'll be doing a full-fledged question paper, and it's gonna be timed. It's gonna be exam-based type of situation whereby you'll set a timer for yourself, sit down, open a question paper, and basically go through the entire question paper as it is. And I highly recommend this when you're actually done with the content, when it's basically exam season, or even if it's not exam season, but when you want to check how confident you are in all the different topics. So you're gonna be doing this method to basically go through all the different topics, right? So I think that's about it when it comes to the learning phases of life orientation. Life sciences, sorry. The 3 phases of life sciences. So meaning you now have your active learning phase, you have your repetition or reinforcement phase, and then you have your testing phase, right? So now let's just talk about general tips with regards to life sciences. The first one being actually directly connected to the testing phase, and that is just you familiarizing yourself with the format of the question paper in general. Having to know what the question paper looks like, excuse me, is gonna give you a certain level of confidence when you get in there. You just feel like, hey, you just feel something else, when or it's gonna be multiple choice, and then the biological terms, and it really helps while you're doing the past papers. You're gonna see that connection. What is going on? Ish. You're gonna see that connection. I'm sorry about that. You're gonna see the connection, and then it's gonna be interesting to just have that confidence in yourself and your studying. My second tip, and probably one of the most important ones, is reviewing the paper after the exam. I know that this may sound off, but like, if it's not your last and final paper in life sciences, you're not in a position to say it is what it is or huatswana. You have to go and review that question paper. Those questions that kicked you, they're gonna come back and haunt you and kick you again if you don't look at them. You don't wanna be in that state or that feeling whereby you're in the exam one more time and you see that question being repeated and you're like, this question was there in the previous exam. Or even worse, you see a question and you remember the answer but you don't remember it. When I once saw the answer, but I didn't really take some time to actually understand that answer. I just looked at it and I was like, so avoid that pain. It's really painful. I've been through it and it's not nice. So just take some time to review the question paper, but like, obviously not during exam season when you have like back-to-back exams. You can't really be focusing on that. Focus on your exams that are upcoming. I'm just saying that when you have your free time, your extra time, take some time to actually go through those things. I know a lot of people who don't, after writing a test, it's just bye. I'm never seeing that question paper again. It moved me and that was it. But it's not it. You're gonna receive a similar question again soon, and it's not gonna be nice. So make that time to review the question paper that you just wrote. And it's even better if you guys do corrections in class. Pay attention to those corrections and take note of what you got wrong. Another tip is that it's okay to skip questions during the exam. You can skip some questions and then come back to them later, especially with section A of life sciences, the multiple choice and the terminology. If you're not sure of your answer, you can skip the question, and then chances are 90% of the time not 90%, maybe less, but like most of the time you're gonna go through the paper while you're writing. It's either you remember the answer or you come across it in the question paper, so don't rush the thing. If you don't know the question, you can skip it and then come back to it later. Now, talking about section A, actually, the multiple choice and terminology. In fact, I just want to focus on the multiple choice. Not multiple choice, man. Ofentse, the terminology. So I just want to focus on the terminology. I remember in grade 12, I know I may sound like a nerd for knowing this, but there are like approximately 35 different definitions or terminologies that you need to know for your life science paper 1. Don't ask me how I know that. I just went through many papers and then I just found that most of the terminologies are repetitive. So it should be your task to make sure that you always get a 10 out of 10 in that terminology section. Why? Because it is highly repetitive. They never bring out new questions in that section. Every single terminology definition that you see there has been asked before. So try compiling, even if you have time to compile a list of the different terminologies and their their definitions, and knowing all of them. It doesn't even have to be during your life science study sessions. On a random day, when you're eating your pap, you just open the JSTD app and then you what you call this thing, you just go to the biological terms section and look for one term that you know. This, if it was to come in the exam, I wouldn't know it, and then from that day on you know it, and that's it. So bit by bit, make sure you master these terminologies in life sciences. Trust me, all combined, those things, they are not more than 50 if I'm not mistaken, and 50 is like you already know 70% of those things. You just need to know the rest. That always kicks you. The rest that always kicks you. The rest that always kicks you. You just need to know those ones and then you are in. And then another thing I wanted to just talk about one more time is using passive methods of studying, such as like highlighting. I know I already talked about this on like what you should do in the active learning phase, but I just wanted to talk about like especially highlighting. People love highlighting. Guys, if you were to highlight something today, I promise you next week on this day, you won't remember what you highlighted. In fact, you won't even remember that you once highlighted something. So highlighting is a very passive method when it comes to studying. I'm not saying that you should stop highlighting, but just don't incorporate my English is cooking today. Just don't incorporate it into your study sessions. Do not make it a part of your studying, because it's something that's not really beneficial. Highlighting, I would say, is only beneficial when you're actually looking at a bunch of notes and you're highlighting the most important concepts. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, this won't really matter once you start writing down your notes, which then brings me to my next point. And that is, you should have a dedicated notebook, whereby you're gonna be writing all your essential things for life sciences. And this is gonna be, number 1, the questions that you find difficult to remember, or not even to remember, but to understand while studying. Life science tends to have those difficult questions. Life science tends to have those questions that are just out of topic, like usually they're like 5 marks or 6 marks, that are basically like almost paragraph based questions, and you have to know and understand them. So that's like the first thing that you will be putting into that notebook of yours. So this is basically the essence of what I'm talking about, just that this one is for geography, but it's basically the same concept in a sense that for example here, the development of a meander. This is what I have the main points that I have to remember, and this is basically what I was doing for most of my topics. When do they dissipate? These are the 2 points that I have to know, and it's basically what this book is filled with. Such types of questions, or rather answers, that I have to know. So for example, these are the ones that I used to struggle with a lot. When do they start dissipating at the apex? I have these 2 points that I have to know. This, I have these. This, I have this. These are the questions, and then that's about it. Number 2 is gonna be the questions from, remember when I talked about the reviewing stage, where you need to review the things after the exam? So those questions that you couldn't answer, you're also gonna put them inside of this book. And this is one book that you're gonna be carrying throughout the year. During your exams, in the morning of exams, instead of going through your textbook or the notes that they gave you guys in class, you're gonna be looking at this notebook of yours looking at the questions and the answers, their recommended answers or the answers that you found in the memo. And then you're going to be using this book to actually practice those difficult questions, because it is assured, or it is most likely, that one of those questions are gonna come up in the exam. And yeah, I think that's about it. Last but not least, last tip is that life sciences is a very content based subject, and it can be tiring, can be overwhelming. You can just feel like you have a lot to study. But like, the trick is to just break down every single topic into its subtopics, go through them bit by bit. And I believe in you, and you should believe in yourself and your potential. And I think that's about it for this video. Don't forget to pray and drink water.